um, a status of whether there's anything that needs to be done to the app right now before we can prepare to start using it for 169,
Mm-hmm.
um, and whether there are features that might make for a good CS169 project team to enhance the app as they go.
Mm-hmm.
There are certainly a couple of plugins that could be written. I have some pretty decent specs from my summer interns on some pretty
Mm-hmm.
interesting pivotal tracker related ones.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if there's management features, like we'd like to be able to have the notion of a particular coach who's assigned to certain projects, or
Right.
any sort of project management kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I guess we can start by just I'm trying to get over to Heroku. I'm trying to remember which link is for which version of the app.
Mm-hmm.
Project scope dash MVP dash staging, right? Is
Uh,
the
so I've got a bit of an echo there, but I think that the place to see the latest version of the app is this staging server, which I will just bring up. Uh,
I think I am bringing it up.
I will put the link in there.
Okay, yeah, actually, I'm. Okay, so I can see that. Uh, I guess we need an edit project, but oh no, that exists, doesn't it?
Some of the color choices drive me batty, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's lots of room for improvement in the display of things.
Well,
Go on, Michael.
in my defense, I tried to reproduce the scheme that was already in place.
Yeah, I mean, just to be just so Kristen and An know the background. The original idea for this was based on a project that I came up with for last offering of 169. There was one student team that did kind of a rough prototype of the idea, and it was enough to convince me that it was worth doing, but architecturally the thing they did was not extendable and it was kind of broken, and the vast majority of the effort that Michael and Sam have put in with a little help from me has really been to refactor the app into an architecture where each one of these metric things is sort of a standalone plugin. And in principle, it's not too difficult to create additional ones of these because there's a sort of a well-defined API for how you would write one, and then you can kind of drop it into the app with a minimum amount of effort. So the idea that like you can actually click on new project and you can start adding the metadata that goes with, yeah, there you go. So the idea is each framed box is one plugin's configuration data. And the plugins basically define what configuration data they want to use. So there's I think, a quite reasonable architecture for extending it now.
Yes.
There is certainly room for improvement on the displays of the things themselves, but I think in some sense a good way to do that is to have it driven by having us, the staff, actually use this for real projects. So I guess logistically there'd be a couple of questions. Do we want to stand up a completely separate instance on Heroku or wherever just for CS169, or do we want to add some minimal functionality in here so that there's a notion of a certain set of projects being associated with a coach or something like that? Because in 169 we're going to have, I think we have a total of 7 GSIs, and each one is going to be looking at a handful of projects, and then there's also me as the overall instructor. I will probably want to now and again sort of browse the entire collection of projects when I'm doing spot checks. So do you, AV, want a separate AV instance of project scope so that whatever we happen to do for it in CS169 does not interfere with you, or how would you like to do this? Because I know part of the goal is eventually Agile Ventures would want to use this as well for project tracking there.
I think it probably makes sense to have a separate instance in the moment so that they're not tied to each other. I think, I mean, I already have two. I have 2 instances stood up,
Okay.
And I think standing up another one is relatively straightforward. Um, yeah, I think
We
that would
were, yeah,
go on, Michael.
we were not thinking so much of using the Project Scope MVP, I don't think, right, Sam? We were thinking more of using the framework and the gems. And
Well,
then,
that's I guess I was imagining that we might just slip we might use the Project Scoop MVP framework if we just
iframe.
slipped an API in
Okay.
there, an API
Yeah.
interface. We wouldn't use the display functionality. We would just like use it as a microservice.
Right.
But I think probably it's sensible given that there may be like urgent things coming in through. Oh right, we need this in a huge rush for what CS169. I don't know that there's necessarily a big win for ensuring everything is on exactly the same. For example, Agile Ventures projects and CS169 projects are available through the same stand-up thing. So yeah, let's go for a separate instance of CS169. The thing that seems to me like in terms of the app, like while there are many rooms, it's basically ready to go. The one key problem is that although we've done a lot to secure the database side, like for the Slack tokens and this, that, and the other, and it's all encrypted and so on, what we don't have is any security on the client side. So in principle, anybody could go and edit the project and see the tokens. So we've got that as an issue in the GitHub, and I would say that's basically the thing that needs to be done. And I know you commented on that already, Armando, with some suggestions for what to do there.
Yeah, I think in terms of having a fig leaf layer of access control, the very easiest thing, a one-point story is we can add HTTP basic auth and just force HTTPS for everything. There we go.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I've done the basic auth thing before. I think it is literally a one-line change where you just add an application level before filter, and the right thing just happens. So, worst case, I can probably take a look at that, and then we'll just agree that our staff and you guys will just share a password for now.
Right.
I do think I'm gonna have one of the teams of students work on the app.
Sure.
Because some level of basic access control is something we need. And there's also, I think longer term it would be useful to have this notion of an individual coach is supervising certain projects.
Right.
Not every coach may want to have visibility of all the metrics, so some configuration of what is your personal metric dashboard for the projects you're supervising and so on.
Yeah.
So I guess when that time comes, I assume what we will do is we'll have a student team fork the main repo, which I think is the main repo on Agile Ventures or SAS Bookstore? I can't even remember which one is the main repo now.
Agile Ventures is now the main one.
That's the active development one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll have the students fork that, and we will. I think part of that project will be that the students will coordinate informally with you guys to make sure that we can take advantage of each other's changes.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the desirability of that from the point of view of having the students kind of work on their own independently. I guess in terms of being able to reuse the things that they work on, I would be like, well, it would be great if they were actually submitting pull requests to our existing repo, and we could be involved in giving them feedback on them, during the course of the course, so to speak. But maybe that's too complex and it's too much of an advantage or something for that team of students.
Well, I mean, I think the main problem is that it would put you in the critical path for project milestones for those students. If you're willing to be in the critical path, then that's not necessarily a problem. My thought was one possibility is if they forked the repo, they could essentially do macroscopic pull requests. So internally, they would do pull requests to keep their the head of their repo in a good state, and they could periodically do pull requests capturing sort of a week's worth of changes or something. But if you would prefer to just have them operate, I guess the question is, is there a way that they can operate against the main repo without effectively having you guys become part of the team? Because I think that would present some logistical problems for the course. You know, in other words, if their process of doing pulls and merges and scrums and everything had to always include you guys de facto,
Right.
that would be difficult.
Sure.
It's difficult enough for us to get the teams to really be disciplined about that when it's just
Yeah.
students in the class. So having said that, you know, I could make it part of the requirement for this project team that they are regularly pushing or doing pull requests back to the main repo with good hygiene.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think that the situation that I'm imagining that would occur is, you know, whether it's weekly or at the end of the semester, the students will, as they often do, go and make their own stuff, and we will have some interesting prototypes of things. But in order to actually, you know, we won't necessarily be able to reuse any of their code. As with the original project scope MVP, we will end up, you know, if we want to bring that stuff into the fold, so to speak, then it would effectively have to be kind of rewritten. Yeah, I mean, the thing that, I mean, already as part of the Agile Ventures, what I do with projects is I'm daily reviewing pull requests from people around the world. So I would be very happy to kind of in principle be part of that pull request review process, to the extent that the students would understand that if they're submitting a pull request to the repo, that I might reject it because I'm saying, actually, you're breaking these issues and this is wrong and this is a problem and these tests are failing and so on. Whereas you might say that for your students, actually, they shouldn't have someone like me involved in that process. They should be off with their own repo, able to make their own mistakes, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, based on my experience with the course, my concern is purely a logistical one.
Right.
I.e., if you were in the same time zone and or around here,
Yeah.
and essentially willing to act as the customer or the customer jointly with me. I mean, my thought was that I or maybe one of the GSIs or on is interested in this line of research
Yes.
would act as a local customer.
Right, right.
I guess my experience is there's enough things that are difficult to get right about running the class that I'm hesitant to add a long-distance team as one of the additional things.
Sure.
But we will find a way to make it so that there's a tight loop between whatever they're doing on their repo and then doing regular pull requests back to yours and trying to keep them in sync.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
No, definitely the simpler thing is to do it separately. I mean, I would be. I mean, obviously you're concerned about the timescale and so on. I mean, I'm happy to commit to, you know, comments on feedback on pull requests being given within 24 hours. But maybe that's insufficient.
It seems like a long time scale for the pace of this class.
Yeah, that's my concern as well. It's just it doesn't seem like it should be, but you know, given that these are students that have like 4 other classes that they're enrolled in, and you know, this semester we changed the way that students enroll in this class because we needed a way to ensure that they would all be in the same discussion section, so that there'd be at least one known time per week that all of the team was together physically, and that the GSI could talk to them. So
yeah,
I think,
definitely safer thing to do. Do it separately.
yeah, I think unless you're dead set against it, and I hope you're not, I think it would probably be more likely to be a successful project if they fork the repo, but we make sure that whoever whoever's supervising this project makes it a requirement that they're regularly essentially doing, you know, do a quick release off of the latest head of master and be doing pull requests against the main repo.
What if, as a way of helping Sam get a bit more quality control, is that he also has access to that repo and can look at the pull requests and comment there as he wants, to try and make it so that it doesn't diverge so much that merges will be really annoying.
That'd be great. I mean, I think
that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
to the extent that Sam and or Michael are essentially willing to act as a proxy customer. In fact, you know, in terms of acting as a customer, that might work better. I have a few specific things that I know I would like in the app. I guess we have to figure out who the customer contact is going to be. Who will be the main customer contact, even if that person is also funneling requests from other representative proxies. I have some specific things that I would like to see done. So I can offer to be the main customer contact.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that's a good idea. Yeah.
okay, because I mean the alternative is I tell you guys what those things are, and then one of you is the contact. But I'm not sure if that might needlessly place you in a critical path that you get no benefit from.
Mm, Well, it depends slightly on what the list of things are that you need. I mean, I think the benefit from us for us is having the project scope thing as a microservice that can, has an increasing number of useful features that we can use to make the process of managing and participating in projects on Agile Ventures, improve over time. So, but I think ultimately though, you're our customer for us, our recreation of this. So, yeah, I mean, as we're talking, I think, to let students have their own repo. Clearly, as Kristen points out, we can comment on their PRs and so on. I think, we want to put the students first because, it's their project, their project class. It's a lovely, side effect if one can get useful working software out of, project teams, student project teams. But it's that probably has to be on the back burner. So yeah, let's have you as the customer, Armando.
I mean, I have it. It's a first order goal for me to have this be useful, permanent work because, like I said, part of developing the app is we want to use it for actually doing research on this sort of thing.
Sure.
So I'm invested in making sure that whatever they do is not throwaway work and it gets integrated into the one true repo. So I think if I'm the main customer, I can enforce this.
Okay.
Right? I can say whatever changes you guys are doing your own, at least once a week and hopefully more frequently, you're also doing pull requests back to the main repo. And I can further require that any functionality or features that they're adding in response to my feature requests are implemented using the controller idiom that basically with a one-line change lets it be either return JSON via an API call or render something interactively. All right, so for any useful feature that they come up with that could possibly be useful as part of a microservice, a requirement will be that the feature is implemented such that it's callable programmatically through an API as well as being an interactive visual feature.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
if you guys are okay with that, I think that's a plan that could work.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think the other thing that's in our favor is that at least we now have a base where the code functionality is broken into these different pieces, and so even more important than the programmatic API call is that they follow the procedure for adding new metrics and so on. And I guess that increases the chances that things that they work on is going to be reusable because they're not going to be making a monolith in quite the same way, or at least they can't. We've built a gemified architecture for them to follow.
And part of the team may also help develop additional gems, which fortunately are standalone, so there's no issue with getting those integrated into a main repo. The visualization gems are separate, so they partition well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I will add a project that I am the I'm trying to navigate the blueprint site here. Okay, I'll do this separately.
Sure.
So I think the only feature that needs to be added before, so this project is really serving a dual life here, right? We the staff are going to actually use it to track the projects, and I suspect that as I have my TA meetings every week, some of the feature requests for me are going to originate from that. So I wonder if that means that at some point the students are going to be standing up their own instance just as part of their development process. And I wonder if it means at some point we're going to end up, well, no, because they're going to be doing pull requests back to the main repo, right? So this is actually a good forcing function. Because we're going to be using, do you want us to use Project Scope-MVP, or do you want to stand up a different one called, Project Scope CS169 or something?
I think let us stand up a separate instance. Yeah.
Okay, but to the extent that the separate one is going to be a deployment from your repo, this is a good forcing function to make sure that their changes get gracefully merged into your repo, because all of our project data is going to be in an instance that is deployed from your repo.
Right.
So when they develop a new feature, if we want to use that new feature the way to do that is going to be to get the feature into your repo and then push from there.
Yeah, and obviously they can deploy to their own Heroku instance and play around with their own versions of data and so on. But yeah, if you want the TAs to be able to use it and will can then like deal with, okay, can we actually safely get this deployed into the CS169 version without losing any existing data, with having it to continue to run, and so on and so forth.
Okay. So then I guess.
And,
go ahead.
Michael, go ahead.
Sorry.
So you're talking about having students do pull requests to the main repo, but they'll also, since they forked it, they're going to have to pull stuff from. Are they going to have to pull stuff from AV to their repo, or is AV going to not do a whole lot of development over the semester?
Good question.
Do
you guys have any idea?
That depends. You know, as I say, the immediate thing that we would do is add this, level of security on it. There are various polishing and changing things that we could do, but kind of, the one thing that we might that's after the security. I mean, there's a series of like issues is getting this programmatic API thing in there that we may or may not work on in the next couple of weeks. To a certain extent, it's down to Armando about, like if you start using it and you immediately need some changes. Yeah, so in principle, there will be, they will need to pull things from upstream. Michael, go on.
We may make changes to the gems, but as long as they're pulling in the latest, those gems will be presumably pulled in. We may make changes to the Slack instance, the Slack gems, because of some query issues.
There's some.
If we optimize the query, we think we can get better data with less queries.
Right.
Okay, so it seems likely that they will probably have to also periodically fetch from upstream to make sure that they're not too far behind the latest changes. So yeah, I think as long as there's some coordination between them and you via Slack, I think it's an interesting experience because this is kind of realistic, right? You've got a team of people somewhere else that is collectively enhancing an existing app, and they have to coordinate with the people who steward the main copy of the app. So I think this will work. I think that the one remaining thing is before the CS169 Heroku instance is stood up.
Yes.
Can we do a very quick story on the basic auth just to have, for the instance that we're going to use for the course?
Yes.
To have some simple password we can agree, even if the password's hardwired.
Oh
well,
yeah,
actually,
totally.
hardwired's a bad idea.
I see that like doing the basic auth is the kind of critical action item that we have as part of standing up this CS169 version for you to use it in the course. So, Michael and I could potentially work on that very soon. If you give me a specific deadline for that, I will make sure that it happens by that deadline.
Well, we're not going to be populating the project repos for probably a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So, I think 2 weeks is probably fine in terms of the usable version.
Yes.
Probably one of the stories I'll have the students do is put in some proper third-party auth like the question bank uses.
Right.
Where there's third-party auth and then there's a whitelist or something like that.
Okay.
All right, so I'll worry about that stuff. I think that's kind of it. I think with respect to the app, that's kind of the, in terms of the research question behind it, we're still trying to figure out what the interesting questions are. I'm probably going to write an IRB that by which the students can authorize us to pseudonymize and maybe analyze some of their discourse data from Slack. And we'll see if we can make the aggregate data from the projects available to you guys if you're interested. I think apparently if it's aggregate data and if you're just sort of using it for an instructional purpose, which, Sam, since you're the MOOC facilitator, I think that'd be an easy argument to make since you work so closely with us on that. The data might be interesting just to take a look at. I think we just need an IRB to write about it. So.
Sure.
Anyway, that's going to be lower priority, but that's note to self because IRBs can take 3 weeks to go through.
Sure.
So.
Cool.
All right. And all that.
Say again, Michael?
Is that just because of like FERP and all that stuff?
Yeah, TLDR. If we need to, the students are being used as test subjects, so there's a protocol. It's like if you're injecting them with drugs.
and that's how the Berkeley students get their great results. It's all before. No, I'm sorry. Yes. No. Well, I think that's sort of. I think we can make that happen. Yeah. There's a few things definitely to tidy up in project scope. Yeah. So we want to plug it into the Agile Ventures and be getting more data out of it. I mean, the kind of features that we're interested in also are like making it not just rely on you using a combination of Pivotal and Slack. Like if people want to use Gitter and Waffle or Jira and HipChat, then those things would be supported. But that's a separate out of band thing, which is much longer term. Yeah. I mean, there are some little bits of it. I guess the thing we're talking about there about gems is like the gems are currently being pulled in by GitHub, and maybe they should be published onto the Ruby gems or what have you. But this is all, yeah. All that was I was going to say was, so in terms of coordinating with the students, the students should be aware that they're very, from my point of view, just as Anne is in the Project Scope channel. Oh, and I see Kristen's run as well. Hey, Kristen. The students would be very welcome to be in here, and I think, yeah, the situation we probably want to avoid is one in which the students feel like, oh, it's this terrible drag that they've got this other team who can like get in the way and create problems. I think, as the way you described it earlier, Armando, is that actually this is quite, very similar to what happens in the real world, and it's actually a great opportunity to, experience that, and that can be very, valuable and useful going forward to be able to talk, having worked with, teams in multiple time zones and so on. But I can also imagine from the student's point of view that it's like, hey, we've done this and it all works. Why is this, strange guy in the UK saying that like this code map doesn't look right or what have you? Why do we have to do what he says, kind of thing? Do you know what I mean? So that's, we want to, like, as they make that clear up front to the team that this is, an advantage rather than a disadvantage in some ways.
Okay.
Cool.
I think that's kind of about it for me. So we will add this project to the list. I will put it in the blueprint ingress, and I'll make sure that when I'll see if I can get one of the teams with somewhat more experienced students assigned on this, because the coordinating with a remote customer is going to be a little more difficult, but I think it should work out fine. And then I guess, let me know when the 169 version with basic auth is up, and we'll probably start incrementally populating it with project info as the projects are assigned, which, like I said, is in about a couple of weeks.
Right. Okay. Yes. Well, I think we probably hope to have that, stood up within a week in order to give ourselves ample breathing room.
Okay.
So I think that's. Is that everything we need to coordinate related to this project?
I think it is for me.
Yeah. Michael, any questions or concerns?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, I will, Sam. I'll circle back with you about the other things presently. It's rehearsal week for me, so I'm doing like 18-hour days. I need to get out of here and get into work. But
break a leg.
Yeah, indeed.
Am I allowed to say that to the musical director? Does that not quite?
No, that's the universal expression of good luck. It's well appreciated. I will try to break a leg. All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you in about an hour.
Bye for now.
Bye.
I might hang out here with Michael just for a minute just to talk about the next step. But, yeah.
How to get out? How to create this?
You don't know how to leave. You're right there, Anne. You can just shut the browser window if you want to go. If you had any questions for us separately,
So I actually don't know whether I should contribute to this code project, this project or not. So I mean,
sure.
In the code side.
Sure. You're welcome to if you want to. I mean, you may just want to like have access to the data, and we can certainly hook you up with the data, to be able to get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, up to you. Just let us know. You're in the Slack. The Slack channel is a good way of getting us anytime you need.
So where can I get like an overview of this structure of this project? I mean, how it works and like. I mean, I can read the code to get an idea, but is there like a document
Yeah, the closest thing that we have to documents, so you're probably already aware of the repo,
Yeah.
which we have.
Okay.
Like, I'll just pop that in the chat in case you don't have access to it. The thing that the architecture of the of the system. Well, I wonder if it's there. Project. There is a. Here we go. We were using this
Under project metrics.
yeah, here. So I've got. I don't know how helpful this is, but in this wiki, there's like some user stories, and then I wonder if this is. We've got like we went through a process of like you can see these different design proposals
Okay.
here, and then so it was effectively this description here from Armando, which was what then Michael and I used as the point of departure. Things have changed a little bit since then, and in fact, one of the things that's kind of an issue that we have, I wonder if I've got it here, is we should be like adding documentation about the full process of creating and deploying a new gem.
Yeah.
So that's something that I will kind of add to our list of to-dos from here.
Yeah.
Good.
So and I'll try and have that, we'll try and have that available over the course of the next 2 weeks. So yeah, depending upon how eager you are, you could
post a link to that. That's basically the closest documentation we have right now for what a gem needs to look like.
Yeah, there's approximate
Okay.
issue there, but we've made some changes from that. So if you're happy to wait, within the course of a week or so, we will have, I think, some more documentation that will be more up to date.
It's fairly simple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, the thing that any gem provides is a score, which is a metric between 0 and 1 of goodness, quote unquote. Closer you are to 1, the better you are for health of the project as viewed from that metric. And then it also has an image, which is basically, right now they're all SVGs because they can be stored easily in a database. And that image somehow visualizes it for a user. And then basically each little instance of a project metric, say GitHub or whatever, has raw data which you can feed in. That's basically data of some type that the project has that it gets through the APIs of, say, GitHub or ProjectMetrics, Slack and all those. And that is available after you call, score image or refresh by just saying projectmetric.raw data. And the idea is that you can then store that raw data, in your Rails app and then reinstantiate it in the constructor. Isn't that basically what it is, Sam?
Yeah, more or less.
So it's actually a very simple design.
So the gem is like it's a way to getting data. I mean, the API between the gem and the Rails, like the Rails app.
It gets data from the external API, whatever your data source is, like Slack or GitHub, and then what it does is it computes some score and some visualization associated with that data.
Okay.
As measured by that metric. So that's essentially really what it does.
So the code associated with the metric is like pretty simple. It's like here we've got one file, less than 100 lines, and so this gem here for ProjectMetrics Slack is encapsulating hitting the Slack API, getting back some data, and turning it into a score and an image that you can, in principle, refresh and update. And then the project scope MVP system itself, it just pulls in that gem. So you can see we've got a set of, it's got the project metrics one, which just does some architectural things, and then it pulls in the gems that it needs. So what's nice about it is that then all of that functionality that's peculiar to the metric is
You can
totally
show-
isolated in that gem.
You can
And
show
then,
too.
yeah, so just having this here, assuming that you have entered the configs that are necessary for these things to operate, then
Config in the Rails
Wait.
app.
yeah, when you run, you're basically able to run methods like this, which resample all the metrics for a given project. They'll go out, gets all of the data, stores that in the database, and then there's a simple view page just to show the latest metric sample for the project, and that's what generates ultimately this page. So these images and numbers are all stored in the database, so this loads super fast.
But basically there'll be some background tasks with some frequency that will, update the data
Okay, I see.
every
Which
day.
is probably also another
That's another thing to do.
for us there. Yeah.
So as for the Rails part, it's only this view, right? I mean, is there any other what's it called in Rails, like the MVC, like the scaffold, right?
Almost nothing. Yeah, it's that view is the
only one.
projects controller. The only other thing is the for updating. So there's only one controller.
Okay, I see. Okay.
And there's only, there's a couple of models. There's projects, and then it has, there's three models: project, metric sample, and config. And so projects have a number of configs for each of the different types of metrics that there are, and then a metric sample represents a snapshot of the data for that project's metric at that time.
So how the configure goes into the gem, right? I mean, specified by the gem.
Well, the config is passed into the gem. So, for example, you've got here this is the key working part. Like this is within the project model. So, assuming that the config for that project for the particular kind of metric is stored in the database, right? It's stored on its name. When we resample all the metrics, it goes through. It gets all of the different types of project metric that we have, and then it says, right, for this given project, I'm going to resample that metric. So then what it does is for the config, effectively that's a credentials hash of tokens or URLs or whatever it needs, and then here
the thing that the user entered in the front end.
Right, that's entered in when they created the project, and then here's a project metric. So this is our the unifying gem. Basically, it will allow us to grab the the class that's defined in the gem from the metric name and create a new instance of it and pass in the credentials data, and that creates the metric, which we can then refresh. And assuming that works, we can now store the that individual metric sample that includes the raw data, the score, and the image in the local database, and then that will be the latest one that will be displayed when we reload this page.
Okay, quite straightforward. Okay. Yeah.
It's very simple.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anyway, I've got to drop. We've got another stand-up thing that's happening. If you have further questions, and just feel free to ping us in the Slack, or you can anytime there are other Hangouts. Like you can jump in and just say hi and whatever you need.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.